We are standing right here in the room. We are going to be getting ready to start very, very soon in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So again, guys, wanted to say hi, introduce myself, show you guys really quick. We're going to just do a pan of the room. There's a Dr. Frank right there behind me, chit-chatting away, getting a because again, this presentation is going to be absolutely amazing from Dr. Frank. He's going to talk about the elections, things that have gone wrong, and real solutions on how to fix it. This is a great crew here. Again, we're in Steamburg, New York at the Hideaway with Dr. Frank. And I'm going to take you guys, we're going to walk into the room, I'm going to set you guys out on the tripod, and we're going to get ready for that presentation to begin very, very shortly. But I am so excited to have all of you guys here. Thank you for joining us. Again, we really hope that you like and share this presentation out so other people can see Dr. Frank and what he has to say, because again, this is going to be really informative and exciting, and he is just such a wonderful, wonderful human being, guys. I've had the chance to talk with him a little bit here before we were getting ready to get underway, and this is just absolutely amazing. Celebrating these awesome Patriots. You're going to see some familiar faces. I cannot wait. So guys, we're going to get you all tucked away in here in the room, and again, get you set up on the tripod, and we will be beginning in just a few minutes. So I hope you guys enjoy tonight's presentation. So we're going to flip you here. We're going to make sure you guys are all set up that you can see that screen. Oops, there we go. Get you all hooked back up here. And we're going to try to bring that in a little bit there. And I do believe, oops, maybe out just a smidge. Oh, well, maybe let's try changing this. Let's see if this helps. Come on. Oh, I don't know. Nope, I think we're going to go with this one. It's a little bit clearer, I think. I know there's a little bit of a glare, guys. Not much I can do about it. Well, we'll see. I don't know if there's any blinds we can drop. I don't think there are. So, unfortunately, you're going to have a little bit of a glare there up in that corner, but I think we should be okay. All right, guys. So we're going to leave you set tight there. And again, everything will be beginning in just a few minutes. And I'm so excited. Thank you all for being here and joining with us tonight.
Jim got it.
As long as you're not in an interstate,
Air conditioning works, which is what I care about. So, I was with the air conditioner at 62 when I get to it. Cleans the air and cools the room out. I sleep well.
Yeah, same down the
beautiful.
I mean, I'm just, yeah, so right now, just so we're all aware, this, see, like the gray there, would take that piece out. So it's a little with the sun, but yeah, other than that, it's ready to go.
Can I change you? I'm going to share her.
Okay, so you got it pulled up?
Okay, folks, I guess we're kind of ready to get this thing going. For those of you who are eating, you're fine, no problem here at all. But I'd like to introduce my friend here. He's traveled here from the Cincinnati area. He travels all over the country. He's on the road. He says like 25 days out of the month, and I know it to be true. He's all over the place. He's all the whole continental United States. And he's tireless, dedicated to the cause, and I have a lot of respect for what he does. And he's given a lot of information that's helped the election validity movement in general. And so I'd like to have him come up and speak. He's got a lot of information. He just got some information up for Cattaraugus County today. We kind of ambushed him a little bit. He was coming into Pennsylvania, and we sort of tugged him up here to Cat County. He likes to have local information wherever he goes, so he sat down with his computer here for a little while this afternoon and brought up some information for Cat County. So Dr. Frank.
Very good. Thank you.
Further ado.
Happy to be with you. I drove up from my home down near Cincinnati. I got to come through the Allegheny State Park, and it was beautiful. It's my first time to see that, so no complaints. And after tonight, I'm going to try to get back home. We'll have to see whether I make it or not. If I don't make it, that's fine. I'll just get a seat. Now, I've been coming to Pennsylvania for a while. In fact, it's how I got started in the election integrity movement. But really, the thing to know about me is that I'm a modeler. I like modeling things. I'm a scientist. I'm a PhD scientist. I have 60 scientific peer-reviewed publications. I was nominated for a Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1990. I'm a real scientist. Okay, but my real passion is modeling. I love taking huge amounts of data and then discovering patterns, making models, making predictions. And so I've been predicting elections since 1980, when I discovered Fourier transforms of differential equations, and I've been addicted ever since. And I predicted every presidential election since 1980 until 2020. I even predicted Trump in 2016, 13 months in advance. And I posted all my predictions online and showed everybody, and they all thought I was insane. But the odds were 2 to 1. I calculated them. And that was when there were 17 people in the primary. And I still predicted Trump was going to be the president. And people are like, how do you do that? Well, invite me back and I'll give you a talk about how that all works. But I'm serious. And I've been modeling epidemics since the 80s. So, been modeling epidemics and elections. You're starting to notice a pattern here. Okay? And so during 2020, I had a very popular website. I had about 150,000 visitors every week from around the country, around the world. I was modeling COVID because I've been modeling epidemics since the 80s. And I'm also an expert in mRNA technology. I was a consultant for a laboratory in Cincinnati for 6 years. I'm telling you, I'm a weird person. Okay? There are many things that come together in me that are like perfectly made for this time in history. So anyway, people joke about it because I model so many things. I model climate. I model, why would I model climate? What a great, just for fun, I'll just show you one idea of climate. So back in 1980, I was in the chemistry department as an undergraduate, and the president of Greenpeace came in and said, we want you to burn all the coal we can burn because we want to produce all this CO2 so that we can capture infrared radiation so that we can keep the planet warm and stop the coming ice age. And that's what the president of Greenpeace was going around doing. And so what do? I'm a modeler. I'm a scientist. So I went back to my dorm room, and that night I calculated how much coal we'd have to burn to produce enough CO2 to raise the temperature of the Earth 1 degree centigrade. And it turns out to be half of the world's known coal at the time. Okay? And that would only last a year because, as my forestry friends know, the trees eat CO2 like crazy, and so they would consume all that CO2, and then we would have to burn the other half of the world's known coal the next year just to keep the temperature 1 degree warmer, and then we'd have no coal during the ice age. So I thought it was a pretty stupid. I mean, I would rather save that coal for my living room during the ice age. And so, anyway, you can see how I think. I like to do calculations, and I like to think things through. So anyway, after he said that, we had just launched at that point satellites that track the world temperature. And it's the most complete, most independent measurement of our global temperature. And so we put them up in 1979, and I've been tracking those ever since. There's a guy in Huntsville, I was just in Huntsville last week, who's been plotting those for us every week, and you can kind of track that. And I've made videos about this online if you want to watch them. They're on my YouTube channel. But anyway, I've been making predictions for years, and this is a year ago in November. This is where we were at, the blue curve of the data, and we're up here, and I said, don't worry about it, we'll be down here next year. Right? That's what I said, because I can make the predictions. I said, don't worry about it, and that's exactly what happened. I made a video about it. Guess where we are? This is as of February last month, exactly where I said we'd be, and compare my model with where we are now. So it's pretty predictable what's going on. You just have to know how to do the math. So I always tell people, don't worry about what you hear in the media. It's all a bunch of hot air. Anyway. The other thing is that I'm a scientist, but I'm also a Christian. I'm a real Christian, and I've been preaching all around the country on science and faith. And people are like, how can you be a scientist and a Christian at the same time? And that's just stupid. It's easy to be a scientist and a Christian at the same time. In fact, the more you know about science, the easier it is to be a Christian. It's not what people think. And so I enjoy doing that. And just to give you an example of how my sermons go, I connect science and faith. You know, I like reading the Bible from a scientific perspective. It's fun. And so when you come across this miracle where Jesus makes water into wine, people always like skip over that. That's boring. And I say, no, slow down here for a minute. You know, water is H2O, 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. Whereas wine has ethanol in it, which is C2H5OH. It's got 2 carbon atoms. So how do you get oxygen atoms into carbon atoms? That takes a nuclear reaction. In fact, it takes 4 Hiroshima bombs worth of energy for Jesus to do that miracle. Wow. I've done the calculation. Everybody always skips over that miracle as it, oh, boring. They all talk, oh, Jesus raised somebody from the dead. That's boring. A little bit of electricity, you can raise anybody from the dead. Okay? And so you know, thinking of it from a scientific perspective is fun. So I like when I talk about science and faith, I like talking about that. So anyway, it just gives you a flavor for who I am, the kind of things I do. I model sunspots. I modeled COVID. What got me kicked off the internet is I put a graph up in October of 2020 that was taken off the internet because I showed the risk of vaccine versus time. Because I've been lecturing around the country. Here's another one of those weird things about me. For 10 years, I traveled the Midwest teaching people about vaccines for Rotary International because we did Polio Plus. We had eradicated the world of polio. And how do we do that? And that's what got me taken down because it was never a good idea to get the vaccines. The risk was always higher than the potential benefit. And I know that's like politically incorrect, but the science is the science, okay? And so I could show you that, and we all know how that turned out. Mm-hmm. All right. So what happened? So what happened? So what happened is the election happened, and in 2020, and I had been working with Kathy Barnett in Montgomery County during COVID because the politicians were calling me from all around the country. Dr. Frank, I'm campaigning. How do I talk about COVID? And so I was teaching them because I had this very popular website. And so then when Doug Mastriano asked for the audit at the end of November, she called me the next day and said, Dr. Frank, would you please look at Montgomery County? We have 4 Supreme Court cases going there. Something's wrong with my election. Would you please, work your magic with numbers? And that's my favorite thing to do. So she sent me the data. I analyzed it. I found all kinds of issues. So she introduced me to the legislature there in Pennsylvania. Frank Ryan and Russ Diamond were leading the audit, the legislative audit. So this is a legislative-led audit. Got me? And 6 of us were on the team, and I was given access to anything I wanted to see. It's important that you understand that the Maricopa audit was not a complete audit, for example. I was a peer reviewer on that before, during, and afterwards. It was a total sham. I said so from the beginning. It was disappointing as I was traveling the country. People were saying, well, gee, look, Maricopa's audit's coming out. And I'm like, I knew it was going to be trash from the beginning. It was, if you don't show everything, garbage in, garbage out. But I got to see everything I wanted to see. Anything I asked for, the legislature gave me. I had subpoena authority through the legislature. It was very powerful. So I could talk about Pennsylvania for a whole day, but I just want to tell you one story, because if you understand this, you'll understand a lot of what I'm here to tell you about. So what happened was, I'm a modeler. So the first thing I did was ask for all the data for Montgomery County, all the way back to 1900. And then I put all those data in, got it all digitally and conformed so I could make models with it. And I started noticing issues in Montgomery County. One of the first things I discovered was in 2012, I noticed that one neighborhood had about 10,000 too many ballots coming in from that neighborhood. Once you build a model, you can see things that deviate from the model. So I called up Russ Diamond and I said, I think you got a problem in this neighborhood in Montgomery County. And he said, you're right. And he mailed me a court briefing. They had caught somebody illegally ballot harvesting there, and they had caught him stuffing about 10,000 illegal ballots. So my model was working. I was able to find the fraud. I was able to expose it. So then I moved forward. Oh, by the way, on that point, before I leave that, I don't want to get too far afield because I want to get to you guys. But you need to understand this. So he went to court. He confessed. He was convicted in court. What was his punishment? Nothing. They slapped him on the wrist and said, now, don't do that again. So when I projected the model forward to 2016, guess what? I found 3 times as much of the same cheating in the same neighborhoods. Okay? So in other words, if you don't punish him, he's just going to do more of it. Why? He's getting paid to collect and stuff ballots. So why not? Why wouldn't he keep doing it? Anyway, you see where I'm going with this. So then I got up to 2020. And this is the story I really want to tell you. So I noticed, I was tracking the voter rolls leading up to the election in 2020, and Montgomery County had about 500,000 people in their voter rolls, 500,000. And 6 weeks before the election, their voter rolls grew from 500,000 to 550,000 in 1 minute. Okay, and that was surprising to me. And so I just figured, well, maybe the clerk submitted all the names at once to the SURE system. That's what they call it in that state, SUR. Every state's got their own acronym. Pennsylvania, they call it SURE. So the rolls got inflated by 50,000. And I just figured, okay, she dumped them all at once. By the way, it was exactly 50,001. Okay, about. I'm registered. So I made note of that, but then I kept looking with my model, and I noticed that every one of those 50,001 people voted in the election in 2020. So not only did 50,001 people get added all at once, but every single one of them cast a ballot in the 2020 election. That was very suspicious to me. And then all 50,001 of them were removed by the end of December. And that was also suspicious to me. So I called up Russ Diamond and I said, I want to talk to Secretary Bookbar, Secretary of State of Pennsylvania. And so we got her on the phone and I asked her the question, why are you removing these 50,001 people from the voter rolls? They just voted. And her answer to me totally caught me off guard. I was flustered and I kind of made a fool of myself. She said, because they moved away. And I never even thought of that answer, and I was like, I was just kind of flustered. I didn't even think of that possibility. And so I said, well, thank you very much. I'll look into it. I just felt totally embarrassed because I had gotten the subpoena power. We'd got her on the phone, and she told me because we moved away, and I had never even thought of that idea. So I started looking them up, and sure enough, every one of them had moved away. Now I didn't look them all up. I gave up after I looked about 50 or 60 of them up, and everyone had moved away. But they all had something in common. They'd all moved away 10 years earlier. And so what was happening was somebody was using old copies of the voter rolls, putting people back into the rolls, casting ballots for those names, because those people aren't going to vote. They don't live there anymore. And then the state system that does voter roll maintenance a month afterwards was using the post office records to say anybody 10 years or prior moved away, remove them from the rolls. And so the state system was automatically taking them out afterwards. So it's like a built-in perfect way to cheat. You put in names into the rolls who aren't really there, you stuff ballots using those names, and then the state covers up the evidence for you. Pretty slick little way of doing it, isn't it? Okay, so then the question is well, who did that? Right? Well, remember, I have subpoena power. We can just see anything we want. We had 4 Supreme Court cases going. So the attorneys were very interested in this, and we got 6 IT guys. We downloaded the logs from the state system, SURE system, so we knew every person who logged in and did anything in the rolls. And we got it for 2 months leading up to the election. And these guys found my 50,000. That's what we were looking for. They found it. It was Tuesday afternoon, about 1:30 in the afternoon. Within 1 minute, 4 entries. Boom, 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 boom. All 50,000 names were put in there. Now, with cybercrime, you don't know who's on the other side of the keys. You just know from the log which ID was used and which password. So and that's all we knew. And when you looked at that, it was a surprise to us. I was shocked, actually. It was the Hillary Clinton campaign. And so I called Russ Diamond and I said, I don't understand. First of all, it's 2020, it's not 2016. This is history. What is the Hillary Clinton campaign doing in your voter rolls? I don't understand. And so the first thing he did, he sent me a newspaper article describing how in 2015, the state of Pennsylvania hired Hillary Clinton campaign to write an API, an app that allows you to register people to vote on your cell phones or tablets or anything. And so the software development credentials were still active. and that's what was being used to put in. And so we had them dead to rights. We caught them putting the names in, but I'm a scientist, right? So I was doing an experiment. When you think you know what's going on, you make a prediction. So we got 16. I told my team, give me 1,600 addresses in Montgomery County. Don't tell me how you picked them. Just pick 1,600 addresses, and I'm going to run my algorithms on it and my models, and I'm going to tell you how many of those houses have at least one phantom voter, somebody who doesn't live there but cast a vote. Okay, so they gave me those. So they gave me 1,600 addresses, and I ran my models, and I said it's going to be 30%. 30% of the doors you knocked on is going to have a phantom voter. Well, we then we had 100 volunteers, and they knocked on doors for 3 days. They found 31.5%, so really close to my prediction of the doors. They had somebody there who didn't live there, but they cast a ballot from there, and it's exactly what my models were telling me. So, in other words, we were sure. So I was organizing this into a presentation, and we were going to show it to the private committee first of the legislature and show it to them. We're getting all ready. This is about the second week in December at this point.
So all this is at the county level still? Or does it also include the state?
Everything I was talking about was Montgomery, because that was where the Supreme Court cases were from. Okay. And I was supporting that case, if that makes sense. Everything is county, yes. Okay. But the state system is the sure system. So the cheater was using the state voter roll system to insert. That wasn't happening at the county level, that was happening at the state level. Okay. And I'm going to talk more about that, so that's a really good question that you asked. I'll come back to that. So what happened was, I was getting all that evidence ready to present to the committee, and somebody else on the team said, well, gee, I wonder if it's happening anywhere else in the state. And so we put our 6 guys back to work, our IT guys back to work, and they started scanning all the other counties in the state, and we found 32 other non-government organizations, NGOs, non-government organizations that were doing exactly the same thing. We're talking hundreds of thousands of names that were being inserted and ballots were being stuffed for those names. So that was like mind-blowing. So we had it dead to rights. We have electronic records proving that they were inserted last minute, that they'd all voted. This is it. This is an open and shut case. So so we bring it to the committee. What am I expecting them to do? I'm expecting them to say, oh my goodness, our election was infiltrated and we need to decertify. That's what Doug Frank is thinking. This is about the second week in December, end of the second week. And we needed them to decertify it because Trump would have decertified the entire federal election. He would have nullified the entire election. He just wanted one state to stand up. All we needed was one state to stand with Trump, and he would have nullified the whole 2020 election. And so I thought we had him. We had it. We got the turkey by the tail, the donkey by the tail, whatever it is.
2024 election.
What's that?
2024 election.
2020.
Oh,
2020.
Well, you just said 2025, so I was a little confused.
Did I say that? Maybe I don't know. Did I say it wrong? This is December of 2020.
It's 2020.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So we're getting them to. I'm waiting for them to decertify, right? But they said, "Oh no, that's not the way we do things in politics, Dr. Frank." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" "Oh yeah, we have to hold a series of public hearings on it." I said, "Fine, I'll get my bow tie out. Let's go." And they said, "No, the first hearing is going to be the second Thursday in January." So those of you who live in Pennsylvania might remember after the election there was a series of public hearings every Thursday afternoon, and they kept saying, "Yes, get ready, Dr. Frank. You're going to be on, get on deck." And I was on deck for each of those meetings, and they never let me testify, which tells you they didn't want.
Who's they? Who didn't like it?
The legislature,
The people who were initiated this whole...
the audit. Your legislature in Pennsylvania would not let it go public. Instead, a huge report came out, 700 pages, a couple months later, and it's all buried in gobbledygook language, and I don't even understand it, and I'm the one that did the work. Okay, so it was basically a big cover-up. But anyway, when they told me it was going to be so my first big, so I got to walk you through some things. I spent 40 years in the lab, I'm a scientist, and I just assumed that our country was still our country. Okay, and so when people are talking, I didn't know why I didn't predict the election properly. That was a surprise to me. But now I knew because there's this fraud, and we had the fraud in my hand. So that was the first eye opener to me. The second thing that was a surprise to me is that the legislature didn't want to fix it. that was a shock to me. I expected them to say, yeah, let's decertify. That was another big, and they're a Republican majority legislature. This is their guy that lost. Don't they care? So I mean, you can see my logic, but it was flawed. I was mistaken. I was naive. Because I assumed all I have to do is show you the evidence, and everybody's going to go, "Oh no, we have a big problem." You know, okay, I assumed that. Okay, so I was mad at him, so I didn't talk to him for about a week. So I flew down to Florida because I downloaded their data, because all of it's available online, and I ran all my algorithms, found the same stuff going on there that I found in Pennsylvania. Got the Secretary of State; he didn't want nothing to do with me. I went out and talked to DeSantis' team. Nothing. Nobody wanted to talk about it. It's all swept under the rug. I did North Carolina next. In Ohio, I met with Frank LaRose. And since I'm in a Dominion County, I should talk about that a little bit. I'll come back to that. But I had to quickly learn that no counties, no states in the country wanted to address it. There's not a single legislature in this country that wants to address this issue. That took me a while to figure that out. By the end of February, the Supreme Court cases were rejected from there, and I was devastated. And I told my wife, "Honey, we've lost our country. If we can't have good elections and nobody's going to fix it, we're done." And then the day after the Supreme Court cases were rejected, I got a call from Mr. Lindell, Mike Lindell. He called me up and he said, "I want you to come down. I heard about your work in Pennsylvania. I want you to be on one of my next movies." He was putting together a movie. He had already put together Absolute Proof. That was his first movie, where he showed all the electronic communication going on between the into our systems. And he wanted to put 30 minutes of my work into his next movie. But as soon as he saw my work, he said, "Stop the cameras. We're going to do a whole movie just on Dr. Frank." And so he did a whole hour documentary on my work called Scientific Proof, and that came out in March of 2021. And then later that month, his third movie came out, Absolute Interference, which is why I originally went to studio. And the first half an hour of that one is also my work. So that suddenly thrust me from being a geeky scientist with my own physics lab out in the country into 12 million people knew who I was across the country, and I started getting calls from everybody around the country. And within a week, I had 70 messages on my desk. And they all were the same. "Dr. Frank, my name is John Smith. I live in this county. Here's my phone number. Please come help us with our elections." What do I do when I'm looking at 70 messages on my desk? What do? I didn't sign up for this. Okay? So I prayed about it. "Okay, God, if you want to send me to Nineveh, I'll be Jonah. Okay? I'll go." Okay? And so I went upstairs and told my wife, my 43 years married wife, I told her, "Honey, I'm going to set aside my income for 6 months. We're going to save the country, and then I'll be back to work."
How'd that work?
Because in my mind, and in Mr. Lindell's mind, and in most of our minds around the country, we thought all we had to do was show the fraud, show the evidence, and everybody would go, "Oh, yeah, we got a problem, we got to fix it." I was very naive. Okay.
Don't worry.
But that,
Excuse me, wasn't there like 60 court cases, or more than 60 court cases that demonstrated there was no voter fraud that would have had anything to do with overturning the election?
I don't know what you're talking about. I've been in multiple cases, and we've won several of them.
I think he's talking
You're
about.
absolutely lying right now. There were over 60.
They were never heard.
Excuse me? What do you mean?
They were thrown out for no standing.
How's a court case not heard? If there's a court
The judge
case,
throws them out for
then
not
it's
having
heard.
standing.
And juries deliberate on court cases.
I don't know where you get your information, but you're uninformed. I mean, we just had.
Okay, goodbye. Goodbye.
Okay.
So long.
All right, very good.
I feel sorry for all of you.
Go away.
Ditto.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's see, where was I? I was showing you right here. That's where I was.
All of you.
That's okay. That's all right. Yeah, we've got several convictions and we've won several lawsuits. I've been in many of them, but that's okay. So Mr. Lindell discarded me the movies. Oh yeah, 70 messages. 70 messages. told my wife, honey, because I was still naive. I still thought all we had to do was show the evidence and people would, and especially secretaries of states and attorneys generals and legislatures. I was invited by a dozen legislatures to go analyze their states for them. And I've testified before multiple of those. And I thought all I had to do was show them the evidence, and they would address it. I had to learn that lesson. Anyway, so I had 70 messages, and so my wife, my beautiful wife, said, "Sure, okay, go for it." So I went back down and I stared at the stack of 70 messages, and I thought, where do I start? How do I even do this work? So I just said, okay, I prayed again. Okay, God, I don't know what to do, so whatever's on top, that's what I'm doing first. Okay? And guess what? The top message was from Tony Shoup in Pennsylvania, Audit the Vote PA. And that day, we started Audit the Vote PA. And I drove up, and we did an event, and they raised several $1,000s and started Audit the Vote PA. That was my first call. So that was cool. So I hung up with her, and as soon as I hung up, my computer bleeped at me. And it was a Facebook message from a lady in the state of Washington. And it was the same message. Dr. Frank, my name is so-and-so, my phone number, and please come help us with our election. Something's wrong. Okay, God, that's what you put in front of my face. So, okay. I said, hi, this is Dr. Frank calling. And suddenly I hear all this screaming and yelling coming out of the phone. And it sounds like a mass murder. And I'm like, are you okay? What's going on? And she says, oh, Dr. Frank, I'm at a woman's prayer meeting at church. We're all on our knees in a circle on the ground. We just prayed and asked God to have Dr. Frank call us. And I am telling you, my life has been like that ever. I mean, it's just like everywhere I go, it's like I'm always in the right place at the right time, and it is crazy to be me. It's like it's just amazing. So anyway, the next big thing that happened is Mr. Trump discovered me, and I got to be his first keynote speaker at his first rally after he was out of office. It was in Wellington, Ohio, and I got to speak to 21,000 people in person and millions of people online because it was his first big rally, right? And Mr. Trump said to me, explain to the world how they stole my election. And so I got to get up there and explain to everybody how they did that. So that's kind of how I got started in all this. And honestly, I thought it was going to be over by the end of the year because we have mountains of evidence. And unlike our friend here who objected, people forget that Trump was president in 2020. The next day, he ordered the Justice Department to send agents. 3,000 agents went out all over the country and collected evidence. I've sat in skip rooms with those guys. They have mountains of evidence of fraud. I could go into stories for hours and telling you. So he would have done it. He would have decertified it because he had the evidence he needed. But he wanted one state to stand with him, and we couldn't get one state to do that. And so that's why we're in the mode we're in. But anyway, I could go on and on, but I think you're getting the point. We thought all we needed was evidence, and so we spent most of 2021 doing it. I guess let me finish with one story on that, and then once you hear the story, I'm going to move on. So what happened was Mr. Lindell had the cyber symposium. You remember that? It was in August, and that was in. Our goal was to show the world that he had all these recordings of your machines being online. And I guess I just skip over the Tina Peters thing. I could come back to that. But his goal was to show everybody that the machines were online and he had all the recordings. And Dr. Frank had the math that went with the electronic. It was cool. So we thought that's all we had to do was put the evidence out there. But there were complications in getting the evidence out. Our courts wouldn't let us submit the cases and whatnot. So Mr. Lindell changed strategies. And you might remember that Pennsylvania was sued by 7 states. So the Secretary of State in Texas got 6 other Secretary of States, and they sued Pennsylvania. And that case was rejected on standing. Correctly, because the Secretary of States don't have standing for that lawsuit. It's the AGs who have standing. And so Mr. Lindell had his attorney, Kurt Olson, redraft the lawsuit. I helped write a big chunk of it, okay, of the evidence section. And Mr. Lindell and I and Kurt Olson and a white hat hacker, who I never use his name, traveled around the country meeting with attorneys generals and getting signatures. And by November of 2021, we had about 20 AGs that had signed on to our lawsuit. And just so you know how it kind of would go, we'd go into the attorney general's office. Mike would give his 10-minute speech on what we're doing and why we're doing it. Then Kurt Olson would talk with the Attorney General for like 30 minutes, and they'd do all their legal speak. And then I would show the fraud that we'd already found in that state so far. And then we had a white hat hacker who would hack into their election right in front of their face. And we thought that's all we'd have to do to get signatures, and we did. We had about 20. But then as Thanksgiving approached in 2021, our 20 signatures suddenly became 14, and then the next day it suddenly became 6. And we're like, what's going on? So we talked to a couple of the AGs, and what was going on was Ronna McDaniels, head of the RNC, was calling these guys and telling them if they stayed on the lawsuit that they would lose all support from the Republican Party. Our enemy, but even when you win the lawsuit, I'll give you an example. We won a lawsuit in Lodi, California a few years ago. Here, I'll show it to you. Let's see here. It's right San Joaquin County. Where is that? I had it in here. Here it is. San Joaquin County. Here we go. We were teaching the sheriff. I like meeting with the sheriffs when I go to counties. And we taught him how to find fraud in this county. And we caught this guy, city council guy, caught him with 72 ballots on his kitchen table. Okay, he was stuffing ballots in his election. He was convicted 4 years ago. Wait a minute. And never sentenced until like a couple weeks ago. He finally took a no contest deal in 2024, and I guess the date's not on here, but this was just a couple of weeks ago. They finally sentenced him. So when you catch the guys red-handed, they still don't want to prosecute. The vulnerability in our election systems is that during the actual election, throughout the election period of time, people who want to cheat have access to every part of the election. They have access to the voter rolls. They have access to who has voted, who's not voted. They have access to the tallies in real time. You're in a Dominion County, so let me just mention that situation to you. In Lake County, Ohio, in January of 2021, the Lake County officials said they didn't want to have the machines. In March of 2021, said they didn't want to have the Dominion machines anymore. So they went to Frank LaRose and said, we don't want these Dominion machines, they're hackable. And Frank LaRose, Secretary of State of Ohio, said, no problem, they're all secure. And they said, if we can prove they're not secure, can we get rid of them? I said, sure. So they called me when Mr. Lindell made the movie about me. They called me up and said, can you show the machines are not secure? As a matter of fact, they can. And so during the spring election, we hacked into the election. We added Mickey Mouse to the ballot. We traded a whole bunch of votes around. We manipulated the whole thing. And then we documented everything, and then we backed out of the system and undid everything, but we had everything all documented, all the bias passwords, everything. And we gave that to Frank LaRose. What did he do? He called in the FBI. And that's why I got so many subpoenas. One of the reasons why I got so many subpoenas that year. Because we hacked into the election in real time. And what happened was, people are being told all the time that your machines don't have modems, that they're not on networks. They're wrong, okay? You're totally hackable. I can hack into any machine in this country. They are all hackable. They all have machines that are all on networks. So it seemed like the argument that we were making 21 to everybody is the machines are hackable. And they were all telling you, oh no, the machines are not on the internet. Well, that's like saying what the definition of is. Because they're not on the internet, they're on secure networks. Secure networks. You talk to your secretaries of state and they'll say, oh yeah, we're the gold standard, we have gold standard secure networks. Okay, I have to tell you this one story. I was sitting with the Secretary of State of Louisiana, Kyle Ardoin, and I was having lunch with him, and he says, Dr. Frank, thanks for teaching me all this stuff about elections. Everybody thinks Secretaries of State know about elections. They don't. They're just climbing the political ladder. So I taught him all morning, and he says, oh, but our elections are secure here, Dr. Frank. How do you know, Kyle, who also happens to be president of the National Secretaries of States Association? He says, I have this really cool app. He says, check it out. I can watch every machine in real time. That's how he knows they're secure. You understand? That's what we're dealing with here, okay? I could go on and on and on, okay? The point is, So earlier that year in April, I met with Tina Peters in Mesa County, and we had knocked on doors and we found a bunch of fraud. And she was like, "What do I do, Dr. Frank?" And I said, "We need to back up everything because we're going to be going to court, right?" Because that was still in the mode where I thought that courts and legal and legislatures would be the right way to go. So I brought in an attorney, a white hat hacker. We documented everything legally. She didn't do anything illegal. But of course, when the state of Colorado found out that we had all the backups of all of her Dominion machines, then they went after her, and that's why she's in prison right now. But it's a pretty sad thing. Trump's already pardoned her, but we're still fighting with that. All right, I got a little far afield there, but I hope you had fun learning. So I could talk and talk and talk. After that, you know, I've since been in over 1,000 presentations. I have a PowerPoint for every one of them in 48 states. They've given me the nickname that this is actually from the Los Angeles Times. They made that cool image. They call me the Johnny Appleseed of election integrity because I'm on the road 25 out of 30 days a month, going around the country. But I'm not really planting seeds as much as I'm cross-pollinating. For example, Randy and I had a great discussion today, and a good talk last night with Jim, you guys, and I'm bringing you the wisdom that we've learned from the rest of the country. I want to start something here, definitely. We're planting some seeds here, I think. Yeah. But I think more importantly, I brought you the wisdom of 6 years of experiences all over the country. And what's been frustrating to me is people are doing the same stupid things over and over again and expecting a different result. Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Everybody thinks that lawsuits are the way to go. Wrong. Everybody thinks cleaning the voter rolls. Wrong. Those are not the problems. It's something else that's the problem, and I'm going to tell you what it is. What is the problem? You know, if you ask Mr. Lindell, he'll say, "We got to get rid of those machines." He says, "We got to melt them down and make them into prison bars." Okay. And he's not wrong. But that's not the problem. The problem is as follows. In every state in America, every state, elections are now centrally controlled by the state. Let me give you an example. Let's say you want to register to vote. You go to your county clerk and say, "I want to register to vote." Does she bring out a copy of your voter rolls and add you to the voter rolls? No, she logs into the state system and adds you to the state system voter rolls. Let's say that your parents pass away and you want to go in and take them off the rolls. You go in and talk to the clerk, take them off the rolls. Does she take them off the rolls? No. She logs into the state system and tries to take them off the rolls. And she thinks that when she does that, that they're gone. But we've checked over and over again. They'll be back a couple of months later. The rolls, your clerk thinks she's in control of the rolls, but she's not. And the way I describe this to people, when I was in college, we had a central computer on campus. And then around campus we had terminals, and we called them dumb terminals because they didn't have any software in them, any hard. All they did was just talk to the central computer. That's where the computer was, that's where the files were, all the software was there. We called them dumb terminals. Well, that's the way your elections are being run. Exactly like that. Your clerks are dumb terminals. When they don't maintain their own rolls, they use the state system to maintain the rolls, which is out of their control. When think about it, at the end of the day, when they take that stick out of your machine, did they count the ballots? They took a stick out of the machine and walked over and plugged it into a computer that does what? Logs into the state system, and the tabulation is done somewhere else. So clerks think they're in control of your election, but they're doing nothing. They don't even maintain the rolls. They think they maintain the rolls. So I take multiple copies of the voter rolls, for example, over a 5-year period of time, and I'll ask the clerk, "How many people did you add and remove from your rolls?" And they'll give me some number. Typically, it's 20 times more than that the state is adding and removing, and they don't even know. It's called churn. And so the clerks think they're in control, and I'm not saying they're bad people. They're not. They think they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. But the problem is they're not in control over it. I'll give you an example. In Mercer, since I'm in Pennsylvania, Mercer County, I met with a patriot there who was working with Catherine Engelbrecht from True to Vote. And he got together 600 affidavits. He went and sat down with his clerk for several days, and they deleted every one of these people from the rolls. And about a month later or so, more like 3 months later, I was in town giving a talk. In fact, it was the same weekend as the president was shot in Butler. Okay, and I sat down with the patriot, and he's like, "Oh, Dr. Frank, I'm so proud we cleaned the voter rolls." I said, "How'd that turn out?" He says, "Oh yeah, I sat down with her for 3 days. We deleted it." I said, "Have you looked at the voter rolls since?" "Well, no." "Well, why not?" "Well, because we deleted them all." Okay, so we downloaded a copy of the voter rolls that day, and guess what? They were all back. Okay, and so you think you're doing all this work, and the clerk doesn't even know that's happening. Okay, the clerk thinks she sat down and deleted them all. So the problem is that you're not in control of your elections. Clerks think they're in control, but they're not. And what did Stalin say? Stalin said, "It is enough that the people know there was an election. The people who cast the votes decide nothing. The people who count the votes decide everything." When's the last time you counted your own ballots? Your clerk doesn't even count the ballots. This is my favorite thing to do with the clerk when she still thinks, she still fights with me. "Oh no, Dr. Frank, I'm in control." I'll say, "Okay, well, how many people voted in your last election?" She'll give me a number. And I'll say, "Did you ever go online and check out the Secretary of State official reports? How many people voted in your election?" "Well, no. Why would I do that? I'm the one who uploaded the numbers." I said, "Well, let's just do that." So I'll log on and I'll go to the Secretary of State and I'll look up the total number. And it doesn't match her number. And it's off frequently by 10%, sometimes as much as 30%. And the clerks look at me like, "Well, how can that be different than my number?" And I look at them. Exactly!
Yeah.
How can it be different? And you didn't even know. Because they follow a checklist. And the checklist doesn't say, make sure the numbers that you uploaded are the ones in the official report. It's not in their checklist. They've got tons of other things to do. So the problem with our elections is not the machines. They're complicit. The problem with the elections is not the rolls. They're complicit. The problem is not the reporting. The problem is you're not in control of your elections. If you were in control, local control of your elections, you could have eyes on every part of the process. You could control. That doesn't mean we get rid of all the fraud, but right now, your systems are centrally controlled. And I can log into them from Ohio, and I can manipulate them, okay? That's the core problem, is that you're not in control. So we got to bring back control locally. So let me give you, show you how you measure up to other states. So after the 2024 election, I did this graph. I like making graphs for everything. My favorite thing to do is take lots of data and make it simple for everybody to see. And I'm kind of in your way, aren't I?
No, you're good.
I'm trying to move around a lot.
And I heard the first part of this before, so
So this is review.
well, I need it, believe me.
You know, I love that comment. She needs review because it's so complicated. Elections are not a complicated thing. Did you vote for the prom queen in high school? It's not a hard thing to do. We've made it so complicated that your own clerks don't even understand the systems. Most of the clerks, as I travel around the country, hire people to come in and run their elections for them because they don't know how to do it. Think about it. That just takes all the control away from you. You've made it so complicated. But anyway, so what this is I've got two axes, and I'm going to show you voting eligible population, VEP. That means citizens that are over 18 years and they're legally allowed to vote. And I went to every state in the country and I did a little research on every state. It took me several days to find out how many people in each state are legally allowed to vote. So it was a big job. Then I also went to each state and I asked what percent of those people are registered. What percent of the eligible people are registered? And I've made a scale here from 55% to 115%. And that's what percent of them are registered. And then what percent of them voted? What percent of your eligible people are in the rolls? What percent of your eligible people are voting? Notice I'm not telling you the percent of registered voters, because that's a meaningless number, as you're about to find out. So, I'm just going to say, I can go over this later with you, but a clean voter roll should be right around here. 65, 70% of your voting eligible people should be in the rolls. About 65, 70%. That's a healthy voter rolls. And I can show you that, but take my word for it for now. Anything above 90% is really a dirty voter rolls. you got more than 90% of your voting eligible people in the rolls, that's a dirty voting list.
How about 135%?
How about 130?
We had that.
Yes. Anything above 100, of course, is just stupid. You can't have more people in your voter rolls than you even have people. That's just stupid. But anything above 90 is really dirty. And I'm telling you, it should be right in here. Take my word for it for now. We can argue later if you want. All right. So let's pretend that 70% of a population in a state eligible is registered, and 70% of the eligible population votes. That would be this line. That's just 100%. So we're not going to have any stuff up in the gray area. You're not going to have more than 100%. That's the limit. So I'm kind of defining your axes for you. This would be a 90% turnout of the eligible people, 75 or 55%. And this is where it should be. This is the ideal. You should have, this is the right number of people registered and the right number of people voting. And you can, if you wanted to, you can just look at historical norms for hundreds of years in this country. That's about where it should be. All right, so I got all my data from the census and every independent state in the country, every Secretary of State website. All right, so we have 9 states, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that have more people in their voter rolls than they have people. Okay, 9 states. And Alaska's up, they're the winners with about 115%. Wisconsin and Michigan way up here, obviously. And that's obviously a problem, right? 9 states. Here's the rest of the country. And the reason why why the whole country is a mess is because the federal government's been giving grants to states to automatically register people to vote since 1993, and that's the problem. You notice Wyoming is standing alone versus the rest of them, and it's because Wyoming has an interesting state law. It says if you didn't vote in the federal election, they take you out of the rolls. You miss one, you're out. That doesn't mean you can't vote in the next election. It just means that at the next election you have to bring your identification, you have to prove you're a citizen, and you have to prove you're a resident. It's like, it's a way to maintain clean voter rolls. And I would say that I would say that's a little bit hyper clean. You know, I would like one election forgiveness, right? And so maybe a little bit up in here, and their turnout is right in the right place too. So Wyoming kind of stands out from the others because they keep their voter rolls clean all the time. And of course, this is another aspect. Just think about this for a minute. People in Minnesota, well, here, let's get you up here. Here's New York and Pennsylvania. So, did you know that people in Pennsylvania are 10% more patriotic than people in New York? Okay. People in Wisconsin are 20% more patriotic than people in Texas. I don't believe that. Okay. And if you look at this graph, think of it like a glass of water. Here, I'll bring up this glass. Let's say, think of it as a clean glass of water right here. Got a beautiful, clean, pure water. And as you move across like this, the water gets dirtier and dirtier. The voter rolls are getting dirtier and dirtier. And as you're moving up, you're drinking and drinking more of the water. So think about it. The worst place to be on this graph is up here because you have the worst voter rolls with you're drinking the most water. So you have the dirtiest water and you're drinking the most of it. And so the worst place to be is right up here, and that's where these are. And so it's no surprise that that's where all the attention's been going with all this stuff balanced. But New York, you guys are dirty voter rolls, but not a ridiculous turnout, but still dirty voter rolls, very dirty voter rolls. And Pennsylvania, you're a mess as well. Anyway, I just wanted to show you how you measure up versus the rest of the country. All right, so I'm on that theme. Let me stay on that theme for a minute. So here we go. Here is Pennsylvania. Here we go. So this is from 1968 up to present. And this top line is how many people are 18 and older. Not eligible to vote, just 18 and older in the state of Pennsylvania. So it's about 10 million people back in it's kind of just climbed a little bit. You can see a census correction in 2000 and 2020. So, but it's basically just kind of climbed up to maybe 11 or 12. No, actually it's just a little over 10 million, maybe 10.5 million people by voting age in the state of Pennsylvania. Got that? This is the number of people in your voter rolls during that time. And you'll notice back in the 70s that you're about 60% of your voting age population, eligible voting age population. And what did I say? 60 to 70%? That's a clean voter rolls. And so you were doing great until right about here. What happened in 1993? National Voter Registration Act, NVRA. That's when the federal government started giving grants to states to automatically fill their voter rolls with people that get driver's licenses, with people who go to jail, people get welfare. And so you can see that even though your population wasn't growing in Pennsylvania, the voter rolls sure were. And so you're basically inflating your voter rolls, filling your voter rolls. And you'll notice as soon as it started inflating, guess what? Your ballots started coming in more too. Isn't that interesting? We can kind of compare the trend here. The trend between, and you can see your population wasn't going up fast, but your the registrations for sure were. And what's spooky about it is these are the real people who should be voting, and these are inflated. And I'm going to talk more about that in a minute because these names are constantly changing out there. It's called churn. So you've got more ballots coming in than you got reasonable people. So you know you've got a serious ballot stuffing issue going on there. Here's McKean where I was last night, and you'll notice that their voter rolls are also dirty. But this is what's particularly disturbing to me when I was there last night, is look at their 2018 turnout. The red is every 2 years how many people voted in the federal election. So presidential, midterm, presidential, midterm, presidential, midterm. More people vote in presidential elections than midterms. You notice in 2018 you had a huge turnout in McKean. Way more. And everybody always says, well, gee, Dr. Frank, 2020 was a special year. 2018 was even more important and nobody even noticed. But that's in every state in America. It surged in 2018. I like Seth Peschel. He says that's the year that they were getting us ready for what they were about to do to us in 2020. So you'll notice they say, oh, 2020 is a special year. No, guess what? You still have just as much of a high turnout in 2024. It's a new norm. The amount of ballot stuffing, the amount of ballots that are coming in is now the new norm. That's what you're up against. So I just went, that was last night. Let me show you New York. I thought I got, yeah, here's the whole state of New York. Okay? You see some basically flat, maybe a couple, maybe it went from about 14 to 15 to 16 million, something like that. A couple of census corrections, but basically nothing dramatic. But you notice that your voter rolls are steadily climbing. If I were to compare the trend, your rolls are growing faster than your population in New York. If I add the number, and this was Erie County, you can see the voting going on. But I just did your county. Let me do your county. This is what I was working on earlier. You guys saw me struggling to get it done. Here we go. Here's your county.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So your voter rolls have been dirty for quite some time. It looks like I didn't have much time, or I would have been back more in history.
Yeah.
But my guess is that this continues down, and you had clean voter rolls, and they've been inflated ever since. There seem to be tracking since, but you should be quite a bit lower. But it's interesting if I compare, right? Why is your rolls growing when your population is shrinking? Okay, and if I bring it down next to the voting, you have too much voting going on too, and that's you've suddenly become more patriotic.
Yeah.
Okay, I think so. You have the same problem. Now I can
Well,
talk.
we just spoke 2 or 3 times because we're losing people.
There you go. So
Kathy, hopefully picked it
let me
up.
show you one more thing, and I don't have this for New York for a reason, but because I don't have all the voter rolls for New York, but I think we're working on that right now. And let me just, in fact, just for fun, I'm going to stop this because we're having fun. We're in a group together.
You collect all the counties of each state too, or not?
Yep.
Yep.
You have a complete library.
Of the whole country.
And how often do you get them as often as they'll produce them?
Well, it depends. In Pennsylvania, we get them every week for the whole state. Yeah, because they're inexpensive. In states like Alabama, we only get them once a year or maybe twice a year because they're $38,000 to buy them.
I just got rolls for Steamburg County, New York, and I had to sign and get a notary public to get me rolls.
Yes. Well, we have the rolls big time for the state. And I didn't show this last night, so I'll just show it to you now. Oh, I'm not on the screen. Sorry, I thought it was on the screen. Here we go. Duplicate. Here we go.
So you just get an idea. You have all complete vibrate. You just somebody has a great idea. So let's look at that now. You can
That's what
look at
I
all
do.
the data.
And I've been doing that every day of my life for 6 years, and I know how to find fraud in your county. And I can teach you how to do that, and that's my plan, okay? And there's a reason why I do that, because statistical methods show that you have a problem, but it doesn't show, it's like if we said 3%, our death rate went up last year, 3% in our county. People go, oh, okay, that's bad. But if I pile up the bodies in the middle of the floor, that gets attention. So you need the bodies, you need the evidence, you need to show the actual fraud, not just statistics. And that's what I do. I teach counties how to do that. And I'll show you that in a minute. So let me tell you what I discovered in Pennsylvania. I discovered it here in December. The first week of December I discovered this. You should have seen me. I was yelling Eureka and running up and down the stairs with my wife. I'm a scientist. I love discovering things, and it was fun to discover this. So let me just show you what this is. This is from McKean, but I have it for all the counties. This is across the bottom is age. So how old are the people in McKean County? And then how many people are there of each age? So it looks like about 500 people are 20. This was for the 2020 general election. About 500 people. And you notice that the most common age in 2020 was a little over 60. It's the most common age. So that's how many there are people. The black curve is how many people were registered by age in the voter rolls, which I have. And and you'll notice that they've got everybody registered above 60 or so. That's a little suspicious. And what it really is they're dirty voter rolls. The black line should be down. But people that have been in it for a while and died haven't been taken out. So the peak just keeps moving, the black curve just keeps moving this way. In Kentucky, they've been so derelict in their duty that this black curve comes way out here. It's just full of dirty. They've got huge numbers of names. Kentucky, wait a minute, isn't that a red state, Dr. Frank? Yeah, but they have 105% of their people in the voter rolls. 80 of their counties have more people in their voter rolls than they have people in their counties. Okay, that's Kentucky. I thought that was a red state, Dr. Frank. This is not about Republican and Democrat. This is about whoever's in control, keep in control. That's what this is about. Anyway, so blue curve is population, black curve is who's registered, red curve is who voted in 2020 in McKean. And if you look at the black curve and the red curve, what do you notice? They look alike, don't they? I first noticed that, guess where? Montgomery County. So Russ Simon said, hey, are you finding this in any other counties? And I said, I don't know. I'm working on Montgomery County because that was for the lawsuit. So he gave me a list of 14 counties. And so if I take the ratio between the black curve and the red curve, and I assume it's the same in every other county. In other words, the same percentage of 18-year-olds, the same percentage of 19-year-olds, the same percentage of 60-year-olds. If I assume that that's the same in every county in Pennsylvania, then my prediction for McKean is this light blue curve you see underneath the red curve. In other words, I can predict to part per million accuracy how many people of every age voted in McKean County, and I didn't even have to know who voted. I can predict it, okay? But just for fun, I don't want you to think I'm cherry picking. Let's just show all the counties. Okay? I can predict every county to preposterous accuracy. In other words, every county in Pennsylvania votes exactly the same as every other county. How could that possibly be? So maybe it's not just the voter rolls that are centrally controlled. Maybe it's also the tabulation that's centrally controlled and the tallies. You can see what I can show you any county you want, right? Okay. Now, if I take that same ratio and I go over to Ohio, it doesn't work. But if I look at one county in Ohio, I can predict all the other counties in Ohio. If I look at one county in Kentucky, I can predict all the other counties in Kentucky. In other words, this is why Mr. Lindell made the movie about me, because I showed you that the tabulation was centrally controlled by state. Because I could predict the whole state, but I had to look at one county, and then I could predict the whole state. So that's why he made the movie about me. And he was like, gee, how could that be Dr. Frank? And I said, it must all be connected by computer. It must be. There's no other way for this to happen. And anyway, you get the idea. Yeah, York is you believe that? It's 1.000 correlation coefficient. It's like a nearly perfect prediction. It's just preposterous. So why am I telling you that?
Erie County,
Erie?
Erie County, New York.
Okay. I don't have the voter rolls for New York.
Sorry.
Somebody else has them.
I get a bet we won.
And if you will give me
Sure, I would.
your voter rolls,
Give me your.
I will do more than this. Now, see, the problem with this,
You don't have the counties either in New York State?
I haven't done any work in New York State.
You don't like
Because
us?
you never invited me here.
I did too.
I didn't know I was going to even be here today.
He's in Jamestown.
But I would be delighted to help you. But I want to help you in a specific way. This is great evidence, isn't it? But it's not dead bodies. And I have testified before multiple legislatures around the country showing them exactly this sort of thing, showing them the statistics in every county, even giving them names of addresses and whatnot. Nothing happens. You have to deliver the bodies. You have to show the evidence. So let me get back to I didn't plan to do that. But
Can I ask a question?
Fire away.
While you're on dead bodies?
Yeah.
Do you ever worry about being Clinton?
She said, am I worried about my own personal safety?
Yes. Not necessarily by Hillary, but you get the
Right.
Arkansas. You mean Arkansas?
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay.
So I have rules when I'm traveling. And I never travel, I'm always with groups. And I don't travel alone with women, for example. And when I was getting that movie filmed for me, Mr. Lindell was filming, I was in a building. It was a 2-story building with no windows, all steel. And 10 of us were getting filmed, and the other 10 were former Navy SEALs. And they were in camo and bulletproof vests and carrying automatic rifles. Because in that building, General Flynn, several other people that I'm not allowed to say their names, major whistleblowers who you've never heard of, because we never got to the Supreme Court, which is when we would add federal whistleblower protection for those people. And I'm telling you, I don't know how, I can't say because I'm not allowed to say, but let me just make up a story that's analogous. What if the head of security of Microsoft, leading up to the 2020 election, was flying around the world making sure all the networks were all secure because they all needed to be secure. Networks need to be secure during the election. So he's flying around, and then during the election, he's got all of his network monitors out there, and he's tracking everything that's going on, and he notices all this interesting activity, and he recognizes what's going on because his job is network security, and he's seeing all this funny business going into all the elections around the country during the election. And he feels guilty because he enabled this to happen. And so he wants to stand before the Supreme Court and say, these systems are all online, but he needs protection because he'll get Clinton. And so that guy was in that room with me. The one I can tell you about, since I'm off topic, I want to get to the solution. I'm making sure you know what the problem is, and then I want to give you the solution. So it's in that movie, Absolute Interference. The last 20 minutes of the movie, there's a guy who's on the movie, but he's fuzzed out, so you don't know who he is. We're protecting his identity. So he was in Georgia. He's an IT guy, and he was installing 5G. You recall during 2020, they were installing 5G all around the country. He was on top of a telephone pole installing the 5G. And what do you do after you install it? You test it. So he puts it in place, he puts his network analyzer on it, and he starts reading the communication from this building underneath. It's not even encrypted. And I have seen this with my own eyes. I'm not making this up. This is not secondhand. This is firsthand. I've seen this with my own eyes. It says, Voting machine 1, and a bunch of tallies. Voting machine 2, and a bunch of tallies. Voting machine 3. And he's like, what? These machines aren't supposed to be on networks. How come they're talking on cell phone networks? How come they're here? And he's like, that's illegal. So being the geek and the patriot that he is, he goes down to Micro Center. When I was a boy, we used to go down to Radio Shack. But he went to Micro Center, because that's where geeks go today. And he got a bunch of Raspberry Pis. They're computers like the size of this phone. And he put one on 5 telephone poles, so that during the runoff election a month later in Georgia, he recorded all of that transmission taking place. The clerks don't even know their machines are online because they don't plug them into a cable, they don't connect them to the Wi-Fi networks. They have cell phone modems in it. They're calling out to networks on cell phones. And we have the recordings of that. That's the last 20 minutes of that movie, Absolute Interference, is an interview with him and how he did all this. And before Mr. Lindell featured him, he assigned, because I'm a techie, he assigned me and that guy to sit down for a day, and I looked at all of his equipment, we read through it, and it's all there. Everything is there. And we geeked out together. It was a lot of fun. But you get, so, and that's the same machines as you have, same Dominion machines. But your clerk doesn't know. If you ask your clerk, they'll say, oh no, our machines are not online. Are they evil? No. They just don't know. They don't understand. And so we have to bring it back. Look, okay, get on top of it. After you do this every day for 6 years, you have a lot of stories. So I could tell you a lot of stories, but sometimes it's better just to get back on topic. All right, so what am I doing these days? Remember, I started out thinking all I had to do was show legislators, go to court, and I learned, it took me a year, but I finally learned it. I'm slow, but I get there. In 2022, I started working with grassroots teams, and by the end of 2022, I had it figured out. And I wrote a little brochure about it. It's called 7 Steps, Taking Back Our Elections. And I wrote this because the now president of John Birch Society, and John's here, and John Diamond is your regional rep, and you're the local chapter rep for John Birch. Wayne Murrow asked me to write this. He says, I love what you're doing. He says, I want the John Birch Society to implement your strategy. Can you make a trifold? So I wrote a trifold. And it's called 7 Steps for Taking Back Our Elections. They reproduced it and whatnot. But that's what I've been implementing. But when I first started in 2022, I was working one county at a time. And so I'll give you an example of one of my success stories. It's in Shasta County, Northern California. There we go, shift F5. Let's see here. It was cool because I was out in, you mentioned Kim Yater earlier.
Yeah.
She hosted the Governor Showdown, and me and Laura Logan, we got to be the moderators for the debate between 13 candidates. It was really fun. And I asked them a tough election question, and they couldn't answer it. None of them. I just said, how do you expect to win in this environment with all the corruption? And if you are elected governor, how would you fix the elections? None of them could answer it. So the next day, 6 of them stayed behind, and I trained them for 3 hours. And now as they've been going around the country campaigning the state of California, they're also talking about election reform. It's a great thing. It's been really great. Well, we took them on a tour of Shasta County. This is what the Shasta County elections look like today, or as of a month ago when I took the picture a couple months ago. And what happens is in California, they mail a ballot to everybody. So that's already a disaster, okay? Especially since about a third of the people in the rolls don't belong there. And so you're basically flooding the market with extra ballots. I always tell people say, oh, Dr. Frank, we want to audit the election. What do you want to do? We want to do a recount. And so I always say, no. I said, it doesn't matter how many times you count the cash in the register. What matters is how many of the bills are counterfeit. Okay? So you can count the ballots till the cows come home. The problem is that they're stuffed ballots. They're not real ballots from the real voters. You in Pennsylvania, you ought to know better than anybody. Remember when they caught the USPS contractor driving from New York down to Pennsylvania, and he had 200,000 ballots in the back, okay? Okay, it doesn't matter how you count those ballots. You can count them sitting on one leg, you can count them in machines, you can do hand counting. Doesn't matter. They're not the real ballots from real voters. That's your problem. That's your problem. Anyway, So they mail ballots to everybody. When the ballots come in, they get sorted back here. You can't see, but they sort them into precincts. They store them in clear bins. Now, what's fun about this building, and I didn't show you the whole building, but it used to have a fence in front of it. Literally inside a fence with spikes on the top. Because the former clerk was keeping everybody out. The current clerk, Clint Curtis, some of you may know who he is. Clint Curtis, he tore down the fence, tore down the walls. This isn't the wall. This is holding the ceiling. Any citizen can come in through beautiful, wide open glass doors. Any citizen's welcome in there anytime they want. They can walk back here. They can watch the signature verification going on. They can stand right up next to them and watch, hey, that signature doesn't match. Anybody can participate. In fact, they're encouraged to do it. And they have too many citizens, so they have this viewing area where the citizens can just sit and watch what's going on, and they can spell each other. In other words, it's completely transparent. And so what happens is, it's also required by law that they have machines doing the counting. So what Clint Curtis has set up is something very clever. Notice that there are benches here too, so you can sit in that bench and watch if you want. This is just the access overflow room.
Awesome.
But what happens is there are 3 people at every counting station. 1, 2, 3. A citizen, not an official, walks back to the room, gets 50 ballots that have been sorted by a precinct, walks back over here, sets them in a tray, and under the camera, for everybody to watch, it's being streamed and recorded, turns every ballot over. So anybody at home could keep their own tally on the election if they wanted. They could see every ballot. Then they hand that stack to the official, because only an official can run the tabulator. Puts the 50 ballots in the machine, and when they come out, he hands them to another citizen sitting in this chair, who shows them again, front and back, in front of the camera. Why would we need to show the ballots before and after the tabulator?
Make sure they're the
Because the
same
printer
ones.
didn't.
To make sure they're not printed on, because the tabulators have toner in them. They can print, they can change the ballot. And so this proves that the same thing came out as went in. And citizens are able to watch the entire process. So what you've essentially done is neuter the machines. The machines cannot change any of the tallies. They can't change any of the ballots. And we don't start that tabulation until the polls close. Why is that? Because if you're tabulating during the election or leading up to the election with early voting, you're basically, these machines are online. They can call out and tell what all the tallies are. And all you have to do to cheat an election is to know who hasn't voted yet and what the tallies are. Oh, we need 100 more ballots to win. Okay, so who are 100 people who are not likely to vote? Let's stuff ballots for those 100 people. See how that works? So you don't want to give away information. So anyway, that's completely transparent. Now, when the state of California found out we were doing this, they freaked out. This is Shasta County. They sent up attorneys, Secretary of State sent attorneys, Attorney General set up attorneys, and everything we're doing is legal, and they hate it. But because we got away with it, San Joaquin County, 400,000 voters. They're joining them next month. I just was with their county leaders last month, okay? And Huntington Beach, Southern California, 400,000 voters in that city. They're running their own elections now. How am I succeeding like this? How are we accomplishing this? Not by a lawsuit. Not by meeting with the legislature. The way we're doing this is we're working one county at a time. Now, it's uphill and hard work to fight like this, one county at a time. So my new strategy, and this is awesome, you're going to hear about this. So you're getting the inside scoop on something big that's about to happen. Every one of these check marks is a county in Oregon that I have a team working right now. I've given them multiple copies of their voter rolls. We're knocking on doors. We found tons of fraud throughout the whole state. And there's this interesting wiggly line here. That's the Cascade Mountains. Over here, I've been going there for 4 years because I was invited there. But I was showing the sheriff in Clatsop County the fraud in his own county. He was like, how come you haven't been over here, Dr. Frank? These counties would love what you had to show. There are 15 counties over here. They're super red counties. 13 of the 15 have already signed resolutions to secede from the state of Oregon and join Idaho. They hate
I don't blame
Oregon.
them. I don't blame them.
Yeah.
Right. And I had never been over there. You know why? They all think their elections are fine. Why do they think their elections are fine? Because they're 4-1 MAGA. They have a clerk they go to church with, and the kids go to school together, and they have good county leaders and good sheriffs. They don't think they have a problem. So what do? I show them that every one of their counties follows the same registration pattern. Every one of their counties shows the same voting pattern. And they're like, what? Yeah, you vote just like Portland. They don't like that. And I show them the churning going in and out of their rolls. And I'll just tell you this one story because it ties it together and you'll understand. I don't want to give away a name, but I was in one of these counties over here, somewhere over here. I don't want to say, somewhere over here. And I was sitting with the sheriff, and I showed him the churn in his voter rolls, how many names are being added or removed every year. And he was like, no, our population doesn't change that much. He says, it's a few percent. I know, I get the list. And I'm like, well, your voter rolls are churning 50%. Even though your population is only churning a few percent, your voter rolls are churning 50%. The state is adding and removing huge numbers of people. He goes, I'm going to have to talk to my clerk about that. I said, yeah, you are. I gave him a list. I gave him his own voter roll so he could check it out. But here's the story he told me. This is such a beautiful story. He said he was running for sheriff in 2024. He wanted to know how the election was going. So his office is a couple blocks down from the county clerk's office. So he thought, maybe I can log online and see. So he logs in to the county system, and lo and behold, he could see all the tabulator tallies on his computer. And he's winning. This is on election day, and he's winning. So he calls up the clerk. I remember her name too, but I won't say it. He goes, yeah, Mary Jane, I'll call her. Hey, Mary Jane, thanks for running such a good election. I'm clearly winning, and I appreciate your hard work. And she's like, what do you mean you know you're winning? There's no way you can know you're winning. And I'm like, I'm looking at the tallies right now. I'm way ahead. She's like, you can't see the tallies. Yeah, I can. I'm looking at them. She's like, no, the machines are not online. The machines are not connected. He's like, yeah, they are. I'm looking at it right now. And he says, go ahead, run a couple ballots through tabulator number 3. Yeah, and he takes pictures with his phone, sensing your pictures. The clerks don't even know. That's the point. And if you ask them, they will tell you vigorously that their machines are not connected and that everything is secure. But they don't know. So you have to kind of prove it to them. So I've got a bunch of counties over here, 6, that already have what I call an evidence binder. And it's a long talk, so I don't want to give it to you. But basically, I have 4 tabs in this binder. It's a thin binder. 10 cases of fraud, 10 cases of illegal voting, 10 cases of egregious voter rolls, and 5 examples of how the state is breaking the law, or the county is breaking the law. And basically it boils down to, it's a self-contained argument. We're breaking the law, so our voter rolls are a wreck, so we have illegal and fraudulent voting. Here it is, right in our own county. And each one of these counties has prepared their own binder. And they have a lot more cases than that. But I've learned that if you give too many cases, if you give too big a numbers, they just dismiss you. They won't even look at it. But if you give them 10 juicy cases of fraud, here's a guy who's been dead 20 years, but he voted in the last 5 elections. Okay? Or here's somebody who has moved to Texas, and he's voting in Texas every time, but yet somehow he's still casting a vote here. We have juicy cases, 10 juicy cases, fully investigated, already case numbers applied to it by the sheriff, and we bring that into the public. That's powerful. So what's about to happen in Oregon, and I'm going to show you Alabama next, what's about to happen in Oregon is these counties are all going to stand up at the same time. We're not finding one county at a time. And they're going to tell the state, I left out a fact there. We arranged for the Department of Justice to sue Oregon because their systems are out of compliance with federal law. We arranged for Judicial Watch to sue them because their voter rolls are out of compliance with state and federal law. So just think about this logic. Your systems are out of compliance, your voter rolls are out of compliance. They're expensive for us to use. Why would we comply with the non-compliant system? And the counties can save money to boot. So why don't the counties just tell the state to pound sand? The answer is because they're all afraid. So what do? You get multiple counties to stand together. And we get the sheriffs to link elbows and to interpose on behalf of the counties. That's what I'm doing. And I've got the whole state. And I'm in the middle of what I call an Oregon Blitz. I'm going there 1 week every month this year. And it's going to culminate in June. And when you hear it, you're going to heard it. You're going to know what we're about to do. And what's so beautiful is the day and week that we do that, guess what other states are going to join in?
Alabama, all right.
And guess what other states are going to join in? This is what I'm doing every day of my life. I'm going into towns, I'm teaching them how to find fraud, prepare their evidence binders so that when people stand up and say we have fraud, other counties, we have the same problem. Everybody has the same problem, and it's the same format. It makes it easy for everybody to understand. Yeah, everybody has the same problem. And if they say, well, it's only 10 cases, we have many more than that. We're just showing you 10 juicy examples because everybody has the same problem. And anyway, you see where I'm going with this? So I would like, it's okay, it's all right. So I would like your county to be one of these counties. Now, we were talking about it today.
Yep.
And I don't necessarily think that you're going to be able to get all 16 of your county officials, I guess you call them the legislature.
Yes.
I don't think you're going to be able to get them all on board at first. But all we need is a couple to be willing to listen. And we'll meet with them behind closed doors and show them their own evidence and show them that they have the same problem everybody else has. So then what will happen is when these other states start standing up and showing their evidence, and it's more than just Alabama and Oregon, your county could stand up and say, we have the same problem too. And then the magic happens. This is what President Trump posted in August. He said, I'm going to lead a movement to get rid of mail-in ballots. And also while we're at it, highly inaccurate, very expensive, and seriously controversial voter machines, which cost 10 times more, blah, blah, blah. This is a long tweet for our president. It's like an essay. You usually write these short little things. The most important thing he said in there is he's going to lead a movement. Why doesn't, everybody always asks me, why doesn't he just sign an executive order? Won't the SAVE Act fix everything, Dr. Frank? No, absolutely not. The states are already breaking the laws. It's like passing another gun law. You expect them to comply? There won't be any more violence. Let's pass another gun law. Yeah. Oh, there won't be any more election fraud. We'll just pass another law. No, the states are already not following the laws. That's the point. So passing another law is not going to fix the problem. He knows that. It's why he wants to lead a movement. Where's his movement?
Right here. Here.
Where's his movement? That's what we are doing. We are building that grassroots movement. We are not going to court. We're building county by county a movement, and then those counties stand together, and each county shows the fraud themselves. It's a remarkable. So, and it's not a Republican Democrat issue, right? I mean, Jimmy Carter even said the largest source is mail-in ballots, and that's your biggest problem. Politicians don't start parades; they join them. We have to start the parade. We have to start the movement that empowers our legislatures to lead their movement. We have to start that movement. So I have 4 kinds of communities I've identified as I've been traveling the country. We have what we call lead counties. Those are the counties that are standing up and saying we're not going to use the state system anymore. Those are lead counties. Those are like, they're the lead counties. They're patriots. They're charge on, right? We're making our stand. They're the warriors, let's say. But not everybody can be. I think this is what you guys are here. You're what I call a Me Too county. You're mixed communities, but you have patriot groups here. You have good groups here that are very patriotically involved. I think of you like the French Resistance. Okay, you're the underground. Okay, in other words, you're not going to get your county officials to stand up, but you've got a good. You're ready so that when the movement happens, you're enabling the larger movement. So when the other counties stand up and the other states stand up, you can say, yeah, we have the same problem here too. You're ready to go. You empower us. Then there's the third kind of counties. I call them the Don't Forget Us counties. And what happens is we just haven't had a chance to get anything going there yet, or they're afraid or whatnot. And when they see other counties start to go the right way, they'll want to join in. And so they'll join in, and then they'll join up later once they see and understand what we're doing. And then they're never in a million years, hell will freeze over. Counties, they don't want to listen, and you're wasting your time going there. And so I think you guys are a Me Too county at least. And if we can get some good evidence going, we might be able to flip you. As you were saying earlier, we get the counties to roll over. I like that term. Get them to support us. So that's what I'm hoping. Hoping you guys will be that. So let me just finish with a story, and I'll take questions. Or you can go home, whatever you want to do. Here it is. I got so far off topic, I don't even know where I am anymore. I was in North Wisconsin in a tavern. Yes, we got a good bunch of counties there. In fact, that's a good story to tell you. So for the 2024 election, I had 20. They run their elections by town there, and I had 20 towns that were all going to be completely paper elections. Why do I like completely paper elections? Because how do you cheat them? How do you can't remotely control them? You basically cut the umbilical cord from the central system. You had paper poll books, paper ballots, hand counting. So we had 20 towns. Well, one of the towns was getting all loud, and this is another thing about strategy. We have to be smart about our strategy. And the state found out, and the WEC, it's called, the Wisconsin Election Commission, sued one of the counties, Thornapple. One of the towns, Thornapple. And Thornapple lost in court, and the court ruling was, you must use machines because of handicapped people. And they said, well, we don't have any handicapped people, and we don't have any machines either. And the state said, no problem, and they bought machines for each of those 6 towns. And so they had to have them, right? But the court ruling was they had to have them. Didn't say they had to use them.
They're just sitting in the room collecting dust.
And so in 2024, they never plugged them in. Okay? But what had happened was that I started with 20, and then 14 of them chickened out when the heat came. 6 of them hung around, and then until after the court case, and then they all had them, but they didn't use them. So now I'm going back to Wisconsin. You know me. You know I'm doing this. And did anything happen to these counties? No. And what's your excuse? Go back to this. Look at all the money you're saving. And on a funny note, there's a county there, Langlade County. I spoke there one night, about 150 people, and the head person of the county came to me and he said, Dr. Frank, we're ready to get rid of the machines. Tell us what to do. I'm like, wow, I've never given a talk before where I had instant response like that. And he says, you had nothing to do with it. Okay.
Thank you.
He says, our county was hacked this year with ransomware, and they were charging us $75 million to get our county data back. And he says, when we looked into it, we discovered we were hacked through our election equipment.
I'll be darned.
And so that's why we want to get rid of it. They wanted to get rid of it before they even knew who I was. But so anyway, that's a fun story. But anyway, I was up in northern Wisconsin, and I gave a talk like this. And at the end, we were in a tavern. I like being in taverns. Everybody's in a good mood. And afterwards, this beautiful lady and her husband, they were doing selfies with me. And she came up, put her hand on my shoulder, and her husband put his hand on my shoulder, and they said, "We want to pray for you, Dad. Right? We want to pray." I said, "Oh, I love it. Go ahead. I love when people pray for me." So, but she's a Pentecostal. And so she started getting worked up. She was working up a ladder, getting louder, and getting louder, and getting louder. And after about 4 or 5 minutes, the whole place was completely silent. And everybody was listening to her praying. And people were coming forward. Maybe 15, 20 people were all laying hands on me. It was awesome. It was a wonderful moment. They were all praying for me. And so she was wrapping up her prayer. And she says, "Hey, thank you, Lord, for giving us Dr. Frank, and then he's fighting the evil Goliath of election corruption and government corruption. And Lord, we just thank you for giving him such a big slingshot to fight with Goliath. And Lord, we just pray that you'll give him really big stones." And so we all want to laugh.
You're allowed to laugh.
Because,
I did.
but it's a real prayer. And so nobody wants to laugh because it's a real prayer. And so we're like, we're all in a good mood, right? And so she finishes up her prayer. "In Jesus' name, amen." And she opens her eyes, and we have all contorted faces, They're a bunch of, and she looks up at me all confused, and I said, "You just asked God to give me really big stones." And everybody just roared in laughter, and she turned beet red. She's like, "Oh!" It's funny because I was in Michigan about a month later, and she and her husband came. And when I told the story, she says, "Yeah, that was me." It's a real story. It really, really happened. But it made me think about this in a whole new way. And I think this is very germane to you guys. Because if you think about David, he didn't originally go to the battlefield to fight Goliath. He went there to visit his brothers, to bring them lunch, to bring back news to his father. That was why he went there. And when he arrived, what happened? There's this big oaf out there insulting their God, insulting their nation. Like today. insulting their God, insulting their nation. And he went to his 3 brothers and he says, "What's up? Get out there and take care of business." And what did his 3 brothers say to him? "Who are you? You're a shepherd. Go back to the sheep." That's what they said to him. And he didn't listen. He went and stood in front of Goliath. And you remember what he said? He didn't say, "Today I'm going to whoop your butt." He went up there and he said, "The battle is the Lord's. The battle is the Lord's. And today God is going to deliver you into my hands." He throws the stone. Down goes Goliath. He uses Goliath's own sword to cut his head off. And then the Bible, my favorite part, the Bible says, "Then the children of Israel chased the Philistines out of the land." Okay, what did it take? 1 kid with stones. 1 kid with stones and faith, right? And to stand. And I know it's scary. I mean, if you think about it, he's small compared to Goliath, right? And you guys are small compared to your big, nasty state. And it's scary. People are scared to do it. But you've got to find your stones. We have to stand up.
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad I missed that.
You remember this guy, right? 1 person can change the whole country. And I think we are, this is our main problem, is that a lot of us know there's a problem, but we're not organized and we don't have stones. And we've got to get organized. We just have to have a bunch of Davids standing together. I've learned that's why I'm training the counties how to do this, and I'm getting them organized to stand together. People just don't even know their own power. So I'm basically, if you want to think of it from a war mentality, we're establishing beachheads around the country. We're defining the battlefront, and I'm teaching everybody the 7 steps. And my offer is if you'll build a local team, I'll train you. And I don't charge anything for my work. I'm happy to do it. And I always joke about it. If you build it, I will come. I was willing to drive 6.5 hours to come talk to you today, right? And our goal is to vote Amish. And my daughter Nellie, who's Down syndrome, she can vote on paper, so can you. And anyway, how about if I end there, and thank you very much for your attention.
No, my daughter, she went to vote, and they said, "No, you already voted."
Yeah, so somebody stole her vote.
Yeah.
That was in California, you said?
Yes.
Yeah. That happened in Philadelphia in 2020. 17,000 people were turned away in Philadelphia. Were told they didn't vote. Yeah.
She said showing up on you do some kind of a collection or something at the county level.
I was just going to get that. If I could, let me just say again, thank you to Dr. Frank for coming here. This is sponsored in part by our Bradford John Birch Society chapter.
Thank you.
We made the initial contact to get him up here. As he said, he was in Bradford last night, and now Randy made arrangements for here. So we
Thank
want
you,
to thank
Randy.
him for coming out. And the other thing too, you might have caught what he said earlier. He does all of these things on his own dime. Okay, he doesn't charge for the training. He doesn't charge to make these presentations. But we do put a basket out here, and we just ask you for a free will offering. It's just to help defray his costs for driving and hotels and meals and all of that. But it's over there on the table. If you would, if you feel called to do it, do it. If not, that's fine too. No judgment. But again, thank you very much, and we will have teams in place. I guarantee it.
Tim assured me of that. And, yes, sir. Hi, yes.
Yeah, my 13-year-old son got a ballot.
And where does he live? Which county? Ocean. He's down in Orange County. Yeah.
Hi, Tina.
That's because in California they mail a ballot to you. Well, you have the same problem in other states like Pennsylvania. You're mailing ballots to people that you shouldn't be mailing ballots. It's all over the country. The solution isn't the legislature. The solution is the counties seem to say, we're not going to tolerate this anymore. And they stand up. You have to draw a line in the sand. Exactly what you have to say, we're not going to do it anymore. We're not going to comply. Until the counties draw that line, nothing will happen. You can argue and scream and yell all we like. If lawsuits don't fix it, we've been doing those all over the country. Because all the lawsuit will say is, well, yeah, somebody did a crime, and so we'll fix that crime. And now what? Oh, your voter rolls are dirty. Okay, we'll fix the voter roll. But did you take them back local? No. You have to take them back local. That's the only way to fix this. And will that get rid of all fraud? No, but it makes it manageable. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
All right. Thank
Anything
you.
else?
Hey,
All right. I'm good.
Just FYI, I don't think there is an actual local chapter of John Birch, which is why Randy kind of officially belongs to the Bradford chapter. Our Bradford chapter of John Birch meets every other Monday, the second and fourth Monday of the month at 6 o'clock. If you're interested, reach out to Randy or whatever and let me know, and I'll be glad to have you at our meeting. Good job, Randy. Thanks.
All right, guys, so that concludes tonight's presentation from Dr. Frank. I think this was absolutely informative and amazing. I am so grateful and blessed to have been able to be here tonight, to be able to listen to this, have some conversation ahead of time. He is an absolutely amazing human being, really great patriot, guys. If you didn't get a chance to check out the whole presentation, I do hope that you rewind this, watch it later, and make sure you're sharing this out with others that are concerned about our elections and election integrity here in the United States. Again, a wealth of information, and he does a lot of traveling, a lot of education across the states. I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation this evening. I hope you check out his work, and again, this is just absolutely amazing. Thank you all for being here. What a blessing. We will talk to you guys soon. Again, tomorrow morning we're going to start streaming again at 10 a.m. We're going to be up in Niagara Square in Buffalo, so please make sure you hit that notification bell. Make sure you're liked and followed and subscribed on all of our social medias so that you can see all of the events happening in real time. But I am going to sign off of here for right now. I'd like to just have a few minutes to chit chat. But we are going to be live again tomorrow from Buffalo and then Amherst here in New York for all of those other events tomorrow morning. So take care. God